Welcome to the Recruiting Stories Podcast, where we celebrate recruiting by exploring the stories of leaders and top performers by digging into their stories and understanding how recruiting has impacted their journey and their success. All right, welcome to another edition of the Recruiting Stories Podcast. Our first two-time guest. Welcome back, Shawn Varner. Shawn, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, man. I'm great to have you. So Shawn is a financial advisor based in Kansas City. He helps people all over the country. And he's a former successful freight broker. Shawn, will you give us just a quick snippet of your background?
Yeah. So I was a broker for a big box 3PL for about a decade. So started, that whole prospecting game the first year or two in the business, building my book. Grew it to about $4.5 million in top line revenue, close to $1 million in net revenue, GP, gross margin, whatever you call it. Was doing around 700 shipments a month. That kind of evolved over time, but it was a fantastic experience. So from there, my dad had passed in 2019. So my mom and dad were married for about 46 years. Financially, she never touched any of the finances, so she needed some help. So I pinged a good friend that's been with Edward Jones for 13, 14 years now, and he helped us go through that process, and the rest is history. So I decided to make the change and come to Edward Jones, which now I serve transportation professionals nationwide, as Adrian said. So, and by the way, Adrian, I appreciate you having me on again.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah, Shawn's a friend of the show, and if you haven't, go back and check out his first episode. You'll get to hear a little bit more depth of that story of Shawn kind of making that transition, out into becoming an advisor and into becoming a freight broker at the time too. Cool story and just awesome, awesome guy and husband and girl dad as well. So we appreciate him since that's my world too. So
yeah, I think we both have learned just to smile, nod, and say yes over the years.
Yeah. That's good stuff. We were talking offline about the Chiefs Ravens AFC Championship. We're Kansas City fans up in here. Before we get going too much, what's your prediction for the game?
So I think if we have a truckload full of Mahomes magic, we can pull it out. I mean, I'm a firm believer in the playoffs that the best quarterback has the best chance. I mean, Lamar's up there, but I think we have the number one quarterback. So it's going to be tough. I mean, the Ravens are well-rounded, but it'll be an exciting game. I feel like the Ravens and Chiefs are always pretty good games. So I'm looking forward to it. But I'm going to say Chiefs 30, Ravens 21.
All right. Go Chiefs. All right. Good. Well, the reason I wanted to bring Shawn on is, the market is what it is. Shawn's been, successful in good and bad markets throughout the years. And I just wanted to let him kind of talk to you a little bit as, you might be building your book of business. You might be growing your company. And really, it's kind of what would Shawn Varner do, right? If he was in your shoes right now, and you were building a book of business, you were trying to grow, and you're trying to find shippers, what would that look like? So with that being said, Shawn, if you had to go back in time and you were in this market now, what would that kind of look like? Whether you were a new broker or you were just kind of like, man, I was an experienced broker, but I was trying to get things going right now. What do you think that would look like for you?
So I think it would, tenure is definitely gonna affect your strategy. But at the end of the day, if you're in your first, I say 3 to 5 years, I mean, the prospecting part, and I feel like prospecting just has kind of a bad connotation right now, but your ability to grow your book is based on, and if I had to dumb it down, one thing, how many shippers are you contacting each day? And so in my opinion, the mode, the avenue you take does not matter. But if you're sitting there, struggling to grow your book, it's just kind of plateaued. I think it's important to look in the mirror and say, okay, how many actual shippers am I talking to every day, every week, every month? And then if the results aren't where you want them to be, then you have to increase that number. So right now you're contacting 10 shippers a day. Maybe you bump that to 20. And I'm talking about contact with the decision maker. So your actual contacts are going to be quite a bit more. When I was first in the business back in 2009, I mean, I'd make 100 calls a day. I didn't talk to 100 shippers. Geez, I wish I would have.
Right.
But as far as voicemails, wrong number, gatekeepers, maybe I talked to 10 a day on 100 outbound contacts. So I think that is huge if you're in the newer, 1 to 3, 1 to 4 year range. I think for vets, I would mine my current book of business would be my first step. So coming into the new year, I would contact my top 10, 20 customers, whatever that number is, and just say, hey, Adrian, I appreciate your business in 2023 and sticking with me through a tough market. I'm really trying to grow my book of business this year in 24. And I want to know the good, bad, and ugly, but especially the bad. Like, how can I serve you better? What am I doing that I can improve your process and save you time and stress and everything else? And please don't be shy. And then just shut up and let them tell you that. And sometimes they'll say, Adrian, I love you. You're great. Everything is phenomenal. Okay, perfect. And then I would go and say, well, would you mind keeping your eyes and ears open for anybody that ships freight that may not be happy with their provider? Maybe their provider's not giving them the service that I'm giving you. So that's for the happy clients. And so I would start there, and maybe you ping 2 or 3, shippers a day in your current book. And then also, I think, getting out and just getting into that prospecting groove. If you got a 30K book, a 50K book, and you want to get to 70 or 80, you can probably get a little bit of that from your current book, but also you're probably gonna have to bring on some new clients as well.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, right? Activity creates activity. When you were doing it, how did you track that? And how would you recommend someone tracking that now? With it all in the CRM, did you set up alerts? Were you old fashioned? What was your process there to say, hey, I know I've got to talk to a certain amount of people?
This guy right here.
Okay.
Right next. I would just make check marks. Simple. Keep it simple, stupid. We have all the tech in the world, but just having that pen in your hand, and I would cut it up. I would do a portion of prospecting in the morning, and then I would do a portion in the afternoon. But what I knew though is that if you put it off, you hear eat the frog first thing in the morning. Do whatever's going to be most impactful to your business first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. Because there's always stuff that's going to get out of control, and our days normally don't go is planned. And so you keep putting it off. I'll prospect in the afternoon, and then you got an LTL fire, a truck just fell off one of your hot loads. And then guess what? That you didn't hit your numbers that day. So if anything, make a plan. If it's like, hey, I'm going to make sure I talk to 20 shippers today. You want to get half of those done by noon, let's say. And it's just manually track it. And I think if you don't want anybody breathing down your neck, you have to hold yourself accountable. So you have to monitor. You have to run, even if you're a W-2 and you work for a big box 3PL, manage your business. This is your business. I was with a big box 3PL and I managed my business. I had goals. I had a new shipper count, a shipment count, and you do that. And then you don't have folks just, bugging you all day. How many calls do you have? How many shipments do you have? Hey, can you put some more, loads on the board? Manage yourself, but I think that tracking part is, at the end of the day, is 90% of your success.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Talk to me about other types of prospecting, right? Because you mentioned we've got all the technology in the world. Are there other things that people should consider? I know everybody wants to send emails, or they want to do marketing, and grab leads in different ways. And cold calling is hard. If you've ever done it, we all know that it is really hard. Is there value in other types of prospecting? If you were jumping in today, would you try something different, from an email campaign or social media campaign? What would that look like? Or that, hey, listen, I know this works.
So I'm a big believer on each person has an avenue that works for them and that they like, right? So if you have a broker that absolutely cannot stand the phones and they have prospecting avoidance, well, how long are they really going to hit the phones if that's the only avenue that they have, right? They may have all the talent in the world, the organizational skills, they understand the market and everything else. So I think as a newer broker, I would try them all. I would try
Yeah.
them all. And
Right.
so I would maybe you do 20 calls, you do 20 emails, maybe you're prospecting on LinkedIn, and then see what you like and also see what is successful, and then you overweight that category. So
Right.
I believe if you do what you absolutely dread every day, though that day's going to end where you're like, oh, I don't like this business, I don't like prospecting that way. I think videos are fantastic. I think you create a social media presence because I mean everyone's checking you out on social media these days, and that's across all the different platforms. But create a brand for yourself as well. But I would definitely just cast a wide net when it comes to that.
Yeah, it feels like everything is capable of working. It's about where you're willing to invest and sharpen yourself and put in
Yes.
the work. Because, like you said, it's all a numbers game. And so if I can invest and do what it takes to get the reps I need to, you know what, if it's X amount of emails to get the number of touches I need with a shipper,
Yeah.
great. If it's cold calls, do that. If it's LinkedIn somehow, do that. But
Well,
it's
and that's the thing. If you track those, you
mhm,
may know, hey, if I make 50 calls, I'm going to talk to 5 shippers. If I send out 50 emails, I'm going to get 20 responses back, and you kind of know what's working and what's not as well.
yeah, right,
I think the last part of that equation is you have to do it long enough to see results.
right,
So I've been guilty of trying something for one day and there's no results and I give up on it. And I try it
right.
again 6 months later, but this time I try it for 90 days. I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. This is fantastic. So whatever you do it for, I would say at least 30 days minimum,
Yeah,
if not 60 days and see, because a lot of things, especially in the transportation industry, a lot of these shippers, I mean, they're getting hammered by brokers, multiple brokers every day. It's the small percentage that follow up with them when they say they're going to follow up with them. And you start building rapport, you start building credibility. This broker does what they say they're going to do, and then they give you a shot over time.
yeah. You gotta track the results and see what's working, what's not working for you, and then double down on the things that you're successful at. Yeah. Talk to me about shippers, right? And how you differentiate yourself. So as you said, in a market like today, shippers know the game. They know that, hey, they're, I might have freight to move. A lot of people are going to be calling me about it. And, if I'm, the same as the other 1,000 brokers calling them, not going to move the needle. How do you differentiate yourself in a market like we're in?
So this is really goofy, but I used to say, "Hey, Adrian, I'm Shawn with big box 3PL. I wanted to see if you'd give me a shot. I offer Walmart prices with Nordstrom service, right?" And they
Mhm.
chuckle. This is
Right.
something to break the ice, and it's different than what other brokers are saying. To your point, the other advice I would say is I learned later in my career not to lead with what everybody else is saying and doing. So most brokers are talking about LTL freight. Um, I would say that's probably the majority of brokers. So, me personally, I didn't like LTL freight because it was cumbersome on the front end, in the middle, and on the back end with adjustments and damage and all that stuff. So, I changed my whole niche to where I focused on partial truckload. Which I feel like is still an untapped market. We should do a podcast on that. I'd love to talk about that. But so I would lead with, hey, do you ever move loads that may be between 8 and 40 feet? Because I a professional. I specialize in partial truckload freight, and the benefit there's less handling, quicker transits. I just need a little bit of freedom on the front end and the back end as far as delivery. But do you ever have any freight like that? And most shippers do. And now maybe once in a while. I had some big partial shippers as well. So maybe your thing is expedite, right? So I would lead with something that most brokers are not leading with to kind of show that difference between everyone else that's hammering them on a daily basis.
And what if they say like, that's not my thing. Like, we don't need that. How do you respond, or how do you overcome that? Do you just follow up with hey, well, what are, where are you having trouble? Like, what's your follow up to that, I guess?
So I always use pain points. What are the pain points in your supply chain right now? I find a lot of times some brokers aren't responsive. They're not quick enough. They don't handle issues proactively. You're getting adjustments on the back end. They're not issuing credits. I mean, do you have any of those issues with your current provider? So you're throwing out whatever is most shippers' gripes with brokers. So have that list, tape it on your monitor, and you're always referencing that. And then you're going to find, I mean, it's like in any sales role, there are plenty of people in every industry that are not happy with their current provider. The problem is they don't know where to go. I mean, just Google freight brokerages. I mean, there's a gazillion that pull up. So Bob, the shipping manager, is not happy with his provider, but he doesn't know who the heck to contact, who's going to be better, who he has confidence in. So that's where you getting in front of them and then mentioning those pain points, I think, is huge. And the ones, and there's plenty of people, if you say, hey, Adrian, I'm Shawn with blah, 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 blah. And Adrian's like, man, I'll be honest with you, Shawn, I love my provider. My broker's fantastic. I've been working with him for 10 years. And I'm sorry, I'm just not going to change. Okay, I'm getting rid of that prospect, right? I'm not going to contact Adrian again. He's set. I mean, maybe I put him out for a year from now. Hey, Adrian, are you still happy with I know you're really happy with your provider. Are you still really happy? Yes. Okay. Maybe I try that for a couple years, after that initial call, but you can hear it in people's voice if they are truly satisfied or if there's some hesitation there. And that's if you list those out quickly. And remember, you got to be quick on these calls because they're getting bombarded. So you got to talk fast. You mentioned those. If they perk up, hey, would you mind if I followed up with you in 30 days? And you put them on the calendar. That's a hot lead, right? That follow-up is huge. And then you ping them again. And maybe that's the day they're waiting for a truckload quote for 4 hours that their broker never provided them. They're like, hey, Shawn, I landed so many new shippers from that. I'm actually waiting for a quote. I got a pallet here on my dock right now. Can you give me a quote? Absolutely. Zips. What's the dimensions? What's the class? Boom. Here's another part. I'd go in razor sharp in this market. There's definitely margin compression that has happened over the last year, 2 years. So go in really tight in the beginning. There's, a handful of shippers. A lot of them, after they realize how good your service is, they stop caring about price. They do. Right. So they know Shawn is responsive. He has great rates, great carriers. He handles all the issues on all the fires that pop up proactively. I don't mind paying Shawn a little extra money. I don't at all. So are you that broker? Is that how your shippers see you?
Well, and I love the idea of just the confidence of like, there are shippers who would absolutely switch providers right now, right? They're not satisfied, because that is true. Like kind of weird example, but like it makes sense to me because like our trash provider right now has been really bad. 3 kids, run a business, life's crazy for me. We just came out of the holidays and then missed pickups like left and right for us. And like we're going to change. But 1, I don't know what my options are. And 2, like I haven't taken the time to do that. But if somebody called me and was like, hey, just wanted to check in. I know there's been some other folks who've been unsatisfied with XYZ over here. And, I'd be like, absolutely.
Yeah, I can't believe you called, man. Absolutely. That's a great example.
Yeah,
yes.
And it's true because, I think there's a lot of people in that kind of mode where like, hey, I'm busy and my business relies on, ABC brokerage or whatever. And you kind of get stuck with that status quo, and they know that they would like to make a change, but they know that it takes, I've got to do some things to change that. But if you can make it simple for them, right? And you can, like you said, you can be quick, you can provide an excellent service for them, changes everything, right? We've in the past, we've changed insurance providers, and like part of that was, man, I just saw somebody could make it so much easier for me and save me money. And it's just like, oh, okay, there you go. Simple, save me money. And you solved a problem for me and I didn't have to think much about it.
Yes.
So it's good. It's good stuff. Oh, cool, man. So, another thing you said that I think is really helpful for, especially for younger brokers, is you would cast a wide net early on, because I would agree the riches are in the niches, and I think to a point, yeah, I think the longer you go in your career, you can get deep rather than wide. But when you're starting out, like, you don't know what's what, right? And what mode is profitable and what mode is arduous, and where there's opportunity somewhere. And it's all the same to me early on. So I think that's super good advice. Is like, just move freight. It's in the beginning, and then
Yeah.
you'll be able to find that. The other thing too, I think that is helpful. Just recapping here a little bit is, and then I've always been an advocate of this, is like, find someone who's further down the line than you, and like, pick their brain, right? And not just pick their brain, but like, the thing that I would encourage people to do as well is kind of following up on what you said. Once you get them to lunch, once you grab them a coffee, hey, is there anything I can do to help you out? Right? Like, do you get stuck on something and you're like, I don't really want to work on this project because, I've got other things maybe that are more profitable for me. But for me, if I'm new, I'll take it off your hands, Yeah, send it my way. I'll help you out. And one, you could prove that you could be helpful to that, senior broker. They could shoot some of those to you. Two, you might be, figuring out a niche, helping them out here and there. And, then that's just, you're just building a little bit more at a time, and that momentum, it gets that snowball rolling. So,
Yes. Yeah, and you learn through that osmosis. I mean, just observing I've posted about this a few times, but I was on a sales floor of 500 brokers, and I really feel pretty confident about this. I could just watch a broker in their cubicle, or
yep.
walk to the bathroom, or walk to warm up their lunch, and I could almost tell you if they were successful or not from their body language, the pace at which they walked, the pace at which they talked. And that's one thing too. It's just the characteristics of, generally, high producing brokers. They just behave in a different way than the brokers with $10,000 or $20,000 books. So, but how quickly they type, send emails, respond, handle issues. So, early on as a new broker, I mean, I mean, the amount of time I wasted on handling fires, because you just don't know how. You don't know what's the quickest way to handle this fire. I mean, that would be a huge one too. I think there's for especially newer brokers, there is just a natural tendency to hide behind busy work.
Yeah, right.
To not prospect, right? Oh, I had this huge issue with my one shipper today on an LTL shipment, and it took up 8 hours of my day. So I think that's one of those things where, if you just know, like, some problems in freight, a lot of them take time to resolve too. You're waiting for the carrier to check on it and get back with you and all that stuff. So, but I think it's great, is just cast that wide net. You just want freight, you want new shippers, and you want to learn all those modes, because down the line, your biggest shipper most likely moves all of those modes, so you can be a one-stop shop for them as well.
Yeah, that's so good. The CEO of 3PL I worked at would always say, don't get caught playing office, right? Mm-hmm. It's really easy to be like, oh, I gotta update my CRM, and I gotta send this, and I gotta do this, and at the end of the day, like, what's the most important thing to your business right now? Like, what is going to move the needle when it comes to sales, or whatever role you're in? What are you being judged on? What is the most valuable thing? Book that I really like calls it Wildly Important Goals, right? Your WIGs, for Disciplines of Execution. Go read the book. It's great. But that's the thing, is like, can you prioritize and focus on the things that matter? And that's why you see those brokers, like you said, walking with a sense of urgency, calling back with a sense of urgency, typing faster, just because it's, hey, I know what I have to focus on. I'm going to focus on those things right now. There's a time to relax, right? There's a time to have fun. But when I'm in the ball game, right, I got to be zoned in, and I've got to have a sense of urgency, and that's much appreciated by those clients, and you can sense that with good clients as well. So
well, and it's, I think to your point, it's so simple, it's stupid, and it's monotonous, right? I mean, like, it's monotonous to come in every morning and make those 20 calls. Like, after by Wednesday, you're like, oh, I got to do it again. But at some point in your career, you will no longer be making outbound contacts,
right,
for new business. You will have inbound inquiries from referrals,
right,
and that's what will happen, in the year 3 through 6, let's say. So it's a short, it's a long, but it's 2 to 3 years of time to do that stuff. But that's another challenge, is hide behind the busy work, but but just like doing it, like, keep it simple, stupid. You should, in my opinion, you shouldn't have more than 3 focuses a day, no matter what business you're in, right? If you've got a list of my top 10 priorities today, none of them are going to get handled. So you got to narrow it down to what Adrian said. What is the most impactful thing you can do today for your business? And that's going to be different for everybody. But what is that? That's 90% of your success right there. And then you go to 2 and 3, which are obviously important. But what is the most important thing to your business today?
Right. And thinking through that, if I'm a new broker, 99% of you, it's, I got to talk to shippers, right? Like, I've got to talk. I got to figure out what their problems are. I've got to be able to quote for them. Like, I've got to get those reps in, because, like, don't get me wrong, making sure you operate and track the perfect shipment, on the operation set. That's great, right? That is wonderful. And you need to do that well. But when you're early on, man, you've got to do the thing that's going to help make you the money. You're probably going to mess up, a shipment here and there, right? Like,
all the time.
It's going to happen.
Yes.
But
you're going to get fired.
But you're not going to be as stressed about it if you got 20 in the pipeline, than if you had 1, right?
It's one of those, like, we see on social media, and we hear, there's all these ways to get business, right? But at the end of the day, we can be cute about it. We can have all these different avenues, but at the end of the day, you have to contact shippers. And I'm going to bet on broker A over here that is contacting 20 shippers a day. I'm going to bet that broker is going to have a bigger book of business in 6 months than broker B over here that's only contacting 5. There is a part of sales that is generally, and just blanket, let's say it, the game of numbers. I mean, you have to contact people. Email, calls, it doesn't matter how you do it how you want, and do it the way it works. You got to have success and some traction, but that's the most important thing, is getting in front of those people so they know who you are. And then I think you just drip on them, right? You follow up when you say you're going to follow up. So you've got this whole list over here. And Adrian, I would say there's a lot of brokers that, vet brokers that are, in my opinion, living on the edge, because, 80% of their book comes from 1 or 2 shippers. I always wanted to diversify when it came to, and now I'll take those big shippers all day long, but you're living on the edge.
Yeah.
Shipping manager resigns, retires, gets fired. Who knows? Carrier really screws up and they fire you. I mean, there's a gazillion reasons on why they could get rid of you at any time. So that's a whole nother conversation, but something I'd definitely be cognizant of as well.
No, that's good stuff. Shawn, it's been awesome having you on here. And to everyone listening, what a great, I think, breakdown and just kind of a playbook of, hey, here's some steps that you should take to build or grow your business in the market we're in. So rewind it, listen, take some notes. I'll put some show notes in there as well, so you can kind of go back. Shawn, for you, if someone wanted to reach out to you, just to connect, ask questions, be it, financial, and planning questions, or, transportation questions, how should they reach you?
LinkedIn's great. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn all the time, so you could send me a message on LinkedIn. That's perfect. You could email me at shawn.varner@edwardjones.com as well. Either one works.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having Shawn back. Again, we'll do a partial truckload segment, and we've got a couple other of what would Shawn Varner do that we'll
hopefully hopefully one person gains one nugget from this, right? That's the goal.
Absolutely.
Thank you, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Great having you on, Shawn. We'll look forward to having you on next time, and go Chiefs.
Absolutely. All right, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to the Recruiting Stories podcast. If you haven't yet, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on LinkedIn, Adrian Chapman, and Cover 3 Consulting is our company page. Also check out our website, www.cov3consulting.com. Again, thanks for joining us, and we just simply want to remind you that you can change the world by putting people in a position where they can do the most good, and you do that by recruiting. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.